Okay, apparently I forgot to record, so I'm not going to reread all the questions, but I feel like I have to reread what we're talking about. Okay, so this is Mishlei 14:3, part 2. In the mouth of a fool is a rod, staff, branch of arrogance, but the lips of the wise will guard or preserve them. And I read all the questions. I'm not going to read that again. We reviewed one of the ideas from yesterday, but because Rabinu Yona was on the same track, we're going to read the Rabinu Yona in a little while, so I won't recap that. And then we found our way to the Radak, who says, Ki ha'evil hu mizgai al b'nei adam ledaber gvohos, v'omer ani ben chachamim uben tovim v'ani yach v'lasos kach v'kach. The Evil says he's haughty over people with his words of haughtiness, and he says, I'm the son of chachamim, I'm the son of good people or qualified people, I can do such and such. And we said that either is talking about a type of entitlement, that he can like get away with stuff, or it's talking about a capability overestimation of his own capabilities by saying, since I'm the son of a chacham, then I can somehow do what that chacham does. And the Radak gives two interpretations of the second half. One is that the chachamim will not speak in that manner. The other is that they will close their mouths from refuting what the Evil says. And we said that that's probably because the Evil statements stem from a sense of insecurity, because he knows that he doesn't have these qualities. That's why he has to rely on his parents. And if you try to like mess with that or challenge that, then he's going to lash out at you. And I was just saying that there's a Gemara somewhere, apparently not in Brachos or Megillah, where it talks about if a person has yichus in Torah, that's great. And if he just has yichus and he's like relying on that in the guise of Torah, then that's like, he should be burned. That's like a really bad thing. Okay, Ezra.
It was going to be on the OP show.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's like adding anything.
Okay, so that's the Radak. Okay, so let's review. Arya had his other idea, but there's one of the meforshim who actually says something like that. So let's actually review. Let's do the Rabinu Yona again. Okay, Befia, we read it yesterday, but didn't analyze it. Befia avil choter gava shoresh hagava. The root of gava, believe, is in the heart. Haksil, of the fool. V'ha'anaf b'fiv, and the branch is in his mouth. So you've got the root and the branch protruding from his mouth. And you can't have a branch without it producing fruit. And the fruit is the words of gaiva and degradation. This is we've seen this before. Of he loves this machshava for some reason, of the fruits of the mouth. Right, that's like it's a thing. Okay, which I think we've interpreted in the past to mean like it's just. I mean, like it says here, it's going to automatically yield this, and whether the fruits are good or bad. In the idea, the ksil behaves with gaiva in his mouth and his heart, to the point where it's impossible for him to swerve from it, to deviate from it. And it's not possible for him to guard his mouth from speaking gava. It's as if the branch of gava is in his mouth. It's going to be impossible to not yield fruit. The ksil has strengthened his nature bagava with his haughtiness, will go to livav and his egotism. And you cannot stop second nature. Okay, and it obviously doesn't mean you can't stop it per se, but it means insofar as it is your second nature, you can't like control that second nature. The lips of the wise will guard them. Not only is the speech of the chachamim in their control, to restrain them and hold them back from speaking haughtily, but their lips guard them. When gaiva matter arises in their heart, I'm assuming that's Sam. Yep. All right. When a gaiva matter arises in their heart, they won't express it verbally. Even, okay, I didn't read this carefully enough yesterday. Even when they don't consciously apply their attention to muzzle their own mouth. In other words, there's going to be an automatic shmirah. Okay, because they've accustomed their lips in words of in soft and humble words. To the point where they can't speak in this haughty manner. And the Beinonim in the middle is mentioned above. Noter piv shomer nafsho. Okay, fine. Yeah. So what is this is where the Ariel's question from Rabbi Moskowitz is good. What's the subject of this pasuk, according to Rבינו Yona? It's a multifaceted subject, but how would you characterize it? And I say this is the Rabbi Moskowitz question. This is where defining the subject, I think, will force us to have a clear understanding of the idea.
Can you just summarize what he's saying?
Yeah. So he says, let me look at the pasuk while I say it. So he says that the root, gava is a root in the heart of the fool, and the branch protrudes, and the words of gava are like the fruit, and he can't stop the mouth from producing fruit. Okay. And so even when he wants to control it, he's not going to be able to, because you can't control what's your second nature. The Chachamim, not only can they consciously control their mouth, but even when they don't exercise control and something haughty comes up in their heart, then automatically they won't say it, because they've trained themselves to be guarding their mouths and to speaking humbly. And then the middle path, this is Ken's, I don't think we talked about this in a couple of years, Ken's third guy theory, that there's Ken and I had a method of learning Mishlei once where we said that there's always a third guy. There's the two extremes, and then there's a third guy, and we have to define the third guy. I don't know why that method fell by the wayside, but Rבינו Yona is explicitly saying there is a Benoni, which is the guy who consciously guards his mouth. He doesn't have the automatic gaiva words like the ksil, but he's prone to speaking haughtily, and he doesn't have the automatic protection of the Chachamim.
How does he explain I'm still a little confused by Rבינו Yona's distinction between the Evil and the Gaiva person in his description of the first half of the book.
Well, he's saying that the Evil has Gaiva, and he's not explaining how, and he's saying but it's in his heart. So I don't know if he's saying that this is like a fundamental characteristic of the Evil. It seems to be saying so. Yeah, Ezra.
Yeah, it seems like the subject is the mouth.
Okay.
And it's a matter of like what control you have over your mouth.
Right.
In this case, like sipsei and the fee are like not actually like I'm running it as being like doesn't matter. Like it's poetic.
Seems to be so. Yeah.
But if you like how you allow your mouth to run is like what's gonna affect whether like you seem to have Gaiva or if you're a chacham. Right.
So I would just take one more small step and say that the subject is automatic speech, right? So automatic speech of the Avil is riddled with Gaiva, right? And he can't control it even when he tries. And the automatic speech of the Chachamim is going to be self-protecting against Gaiva, So the question, though, is on the practical implementation here. Is the pasuk actually giving us practical advice, or is it just saying that if you work on Gaiva and Anava using other pasukim, then like this will be a benefit? Because the emphasis is you can't control this, right? So I'm wondering what the practical application is. Yeah,
I think it's more of your action versus. I don't think the pasuk's focused on removing the gaiva from within yourself.
Yeah, it does not seem to be right.
I think that it's more focused on just biting your tongue a little bit.
No, but biting your tongue means controlling yourself.
Yeah,
but this is saying it's not the controlling yourself is the Benoni.
That's speech.
No, that's what he's saying though. He's saying that the Benoni is the guy who guards his mouth and guards his soul. That's control. This is uncontrolled speech and uncontrolled arrogant speech and uncontrolled. I'll just read the Chachamim again. He says, "Lo taspik lachachamim hiyosif sem b'rishusam." Needless to say, the Chachamim can control their speech. From speaking hardly. That's not what the pasuk is talking about. Aval sifsem shomros asam. The pasuk is saying their lips guard them. Lips meaning automatic speech guards them. Kiyale davar gava libam. If something haughty comes into their mouth, shelo yivatu upi sifsosem. They won't pronounce it. Af be'es shelo yitnu leiv lachson pim. Even when they don't consciously try to control their speech, to restrain what comes into their spirit. They've trained their mouths in humble speech.
That's my point right there. Yeah. Training your mouth. Like if you're going to speak to a Benoni for what can you practically do to get to this point?
Okay. That's where you learn. Okay, so in other words, like this, our pasuk is advertising the result. Right.
Yeah.
The result. The way to get there is in the previous pasuk. which is practicing it again and again and again, and then it'll get you here. Okay, now I understand what you're saying.
Like think about what you're saying.
Right.
And then say.
Yeah, right. Okay, that makes sense then. I thought you were saying that this is telling you to control your. Okay, yeah.
I thought you asked like practically what can you.
Okay, do? No, you're right. I was just lines of communication were crossed. Yeah, let's go Sam and then David. Yeah.
I think this also it's emphasizing another point that usually when we think of a tzaddik in Russia, we think of like always conscious and active decisions.
Yeah.
How you decide to go to shiur, you decide to do this.
Right.
But this is advertising more of a. It's more like it has to be so ingrained in you.
Yeah.
That it must be automatic.
Right. Yeah. That's the I've been doing a lot of chazara on atomic habits lately, and I listened to a shiur that I gave 2 years ago on Vidu Yom Kippur, and I gave a shot, which is not my usual shot there, of the viewing yourself as half and half. Do one mitzvah and you could tip yourself and the entire world to the side of Zechus, and then do one avera and you could tip yourself and the entire world to the side of Chova, which, by the way, again, misquoted Rambam, that people think that that this is the mentality you have during Aseret Machshavah. He says no, the mentality you have all year round. Obviously, if you can only do it during the Aseret Machshavah, then that's better than nothing. But the shot I gave there is I think fits in with what Ariel and what Sam is saying, which is that that the real thing that's going to ensure your fate is the habit. But the only way to build the habit is the practicing of the actual individual instance of it, So the shot I gave on the scale analogy there is when you're on the fence about whether to do a particular mitzvah or good thing or to not, or to like do a bad thing, you have to look at that as something that could become a habit. And the habit is what tilts the scale. In other words, that it's I think people have the imagery of that scale thing as like the straw that breaks the camel's back, and I'm not saying that that's not true. There is a reality that you can do one thing that can fundamentally change, your fate. But I think that viewing you are what you practice, and if you do this one thing, that could become a good habit that can like change your trajectory or the opposite. Yeah,
I have to give like an example.
Yeah.
So like me, like there's certain things that I just say that's probably not appropriate for like
you
like
never
like fifth grade.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Like, there are many times where I'm like I want to say something, I just like
okay, good.
I have to control myself.
Yeah.
But there was this one time where whatever.
Are you going to incriminate yourself on recording here? Okay.
It's for perfection.
Okay.
So there was a couple of days ago, actually, there was a kid who wanted to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like he was really misbehaving. I'm like, look, you could push your pants. But I said, but instead of the word push, I said,
yeah.
But it was like in between because I caught myself while I was saying it. So
okay.
It was like,
look, that is a there's different places where the Meiri. I gave a shiur last week on the Meiri on Pirkei Avos, and he says that there are 4 levels of intervention in sins. Okay, there's in anything. He said in anything. There's he calls it Eitza Kodem Hadavar. Okay, I forgot how he phrased the first. There's Eitza that makes you not get into the zone at all. Then there's Eitza before the thing. Then there's Eitza when you're in the problem. And there's Eitza when you're entrenched in the problem. So he says with medicine or with health, there's like eating a healthy diet so you don't even get near sickness. Then there's the second level, which is you're eating like unhealthy stuff, but maybe there's stuff you could do to like prevent that from turning into disease. Then there's like you have the disease and then you need to heal it. And then you're so condemned by the disease that you're going to die. And what do you do about that then? So like being able to intervene mid mistake is a level, because you're recognizing it and you're also resisting the the tendency to just like forget about it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, David.
I was gonna say I'm not even sure what I'm saying that has already been said, what has not been said.
Yeah.
But I could see this pasuk in what Yona was saying. I mentioned so far as a person's mind is drawn after their actions.
Yeah.
And this could be talking to someone who then maybe does, as people at the outset, just very much ego, like a big ego, and so that's what you're going to reflect on, that's going to come out. And then saying to at least try and make it to this Benoni stage where you can consciously be doing it.
Yeah.
Then if you're consciously doing it, you will be more led after what you are saying as a Benoni,
Yeah.
and that could eventually put you to the Chachamim stage.
Yeah.
Which is where you
Okay, that's a good way of framing it. Right. So it is describing the progression. And you gotta take each step. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do the me'iri. I feel like he said something good. Me'iri starts on the previous page up here. So b'fi avil choter gava v'sivsei chachamim tishmurim choter inyano bad katan. So it's a small growth branch. Maschil b'tzmicha v'tzumeach ma'ad ma'ad. It begins growing and it grows little by little. So that's a different imagery altogether, right? So he's saying, I think this is like Ariel's. Maybe we'll see. So it grows little by little. So let's see how he says it. Tishmurim. So he explains the grammar. Hashuruk b'makom cholam kamo yishputu heim lo ta'avuri mizeh. So it's a weird grammatical form. I don't really know about that. Titum. That's the Netflix sound. Titum. Chalasa. V'amar shebefi ha'avil u'v'dvarav choter gava v'yosif aleha yom yom v'dabro gavohos gea v'gaon al sharbnan. This is interesting. So he's saying it's a shoot of, so in the mouth of the avil is a shoot of gava, right? A small growth. Yeah, I was thinking that also. And it grows little and little when he speaks haughtily. So in other words, his haughty speech is like watering the gava growth. Okay. Wait, this is either what Ariel said or Sean's opposite of what Ariel said. I forgot who said what. Ad sheyisna'uhu, to the point where people hate him, v'sababu elav nizakim v'tsaros gedolos, and he becomes surrounded by harms and great travails. V'sifsei chachamim tishmurim, klomer shetishmor kol achas mehem osam. It guards each and every one of them. So he made a move here to answer the singular versus plural question, right? Whoever asked that yesterday. So he's saying it guards each chacham individually. Okay, I don't know why he has to say that. It guards them from speaking evil about their neighbors, and they don't bring themselves into trial, into a bad situation. Yeah. So that's saying. So what is he saying here? Before we get to the Yesh Lefarish, let's read the Yesh Lefarish in case it's closely related. The Yesh Lefarish choter mate v'shevet. So okay, it says, or it can mean a rod, okay, not a small growth. Targum mate chutra. Like in Chad Gadya, the asa chudra vihikal l'kalba, right? The chudra hits the dog. Ufi milashon dibur, and mouth means speech. Vahabez kamo ba'avur, and the bez does not mean in; it means on account of or for the sake of. On account of. Klomar, the sibas dibur ha'avil gavoha gavoha, because of the fool's haughty speech, yigrom la'atmo shiavo alav choter gava lahakoso, that will summon a rod of pride to hit him. Klomar shiyimsa geim mimenu shishalmu es gumulo. That's a good one. The people who are haughtier than he will strike him to pay him back. And the chachamim will guard himself against this. That's interesting. So I think that latter one is closer to the approach we were taking to Isaac's approach. But he's saying like this. Let's just the second one we'll define first. He's saying if this guy speaks haughtily, so there's always a bigger fish. Okay, there's gonna be a guy whose ego he steps on, and that guy is gonna slam him. And so it's gonna. So in other words, so he's reading the pasuk b'fi evil choter gava, on account of the fool's mouth is the staff of pride. The rod of pride is going to hit him. Okay, not that he has pride, even though he does. It's saying he's gonna wound the ego of someone else or challenge the ego of someone else, and that person's going to hit him. Okay, but the first shot. What's the first shot of his mouth? His words of gaiva his words cause the gaiva in his heart to grow. Yeah, Sam.
It's like I forget the exact scientific term, but it's like a positive feedback loop.
Yes.
Right?
Until it's negative. Yeah.
Right. Where it's kind of like you put you're talking to a speaker.
Yeah.
With the mic, and you're like right next to the speaker.
Yeah.
And you like whisper.
Right.
And then it just bounces back.
Right. Yeah.
Until it's like out of control.
Right.
So I think it's the same thing.
So can we give an example of this? I think this is a good phenomenon.
Yeah, it's like how like I don't know, they're like self-help thing. Like they say, oh, you should give like a positive
affirmations. Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's like the same thing. Just like bringing it out to the world. It's like almost a form of validation.
Right. Yeah. So actually, that's a good example because you see that you can use positive affirmations in ways that promote growth or in ways that promote deterioration of your mitos. Like if you are using it to try to bring out a quality that you're working on, and like to change your identity to that or something like that, then that could be good. But if it is a quality that you don't have, or forget if it's a quality, like, a lot of times this is not even connected to your mitos. Let's say like you're boasting about your wealth or like your power or like your looks or whatever, then you're just reinforcing an image that you're going to treat as more real. Right. That is not really real, and it's going to get you into trouble from that. Yeah, Ezra?
Yeah, like the image I have in my mind is like someone like going to get a mirror in the morning and be like, "You are a chacham."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think a good example of this, and you see this happen all the time. I'm not going to name names, but throughout the let's just say the recent, not so recent, so the last like 6-7 years of Twitter, there have definitely been people who have used the platform to boost their own ego, and then because they also have like millions of followers, then it's like a tremendous feedback loop, because you have the illusion that other people are like agreeing with you, and then that just bolsters your guy, then causes it to grow out of control.
What was the fourth person saying?
I wasn't naming names. For all I know, I could have been talking about someone who changed the name of Twitter. Yeah.
Okay, but there is another idea. Like even like I would even say like posting it.
Yeah.
Or on Facebook, or like there is also another phenomenon where like they say, at least in real estate, like success begets success.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like it's like I don't know, like it's an attraction.
Yeah, right.
It's an attraction.
Right.
So like Gava can beget Gaiva.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Avera Gorera Severa is how the Chazal say it. Yeah. Let me just see if there are other ones before we go to the Derech Nister. This is an interesting thing in the Rambam, which is on your last page if you want to look at it. It's very short. He named the so in the mouth of the fool is a rod of gaiva to destroy him. All right, that's not the one I wanted. Sorry, I'm really bad at remembering which. Did I highlight? Okay, I highlighted. Oh yeah, this is a new one. The Ho'il Moshe, who you don't have. Choter mimakor lashon arami chutra shu makal lahakos. So he says it's the hitting stick. Baksil bagavas choshev asmo ke adam shalim hamidos umakia leimino ulismolo b'makal shebepiv aklomer belishono hara. Okay, this is a new subject. Okay, and again, think about the Ryan Moscow's question. He says the Ksil, in his haughtiness, considers himself to be someone who's perfected in midos, and he hits to his right and to his left, meaning with lashon hara. Okay, so what is that describing? And then he says, and the Sifich say chachamim she'enam medabrim, they don't speak. So he says they don't speak at all in this area. V'koshkin she'enam osim ki'im davar hagun, and they only do good things. So what's the subject here? Putting the emphasis on the viewing himself as an Adam Shalim B'midos. Yeah. Yes, what do you say? Yeah.
It sounds funny to me, like a guy that's just pushed on a bet from Israel.
That's a good example. Yeah.
He comes home and he thinks he's like all from and all amazing. And
right.
Then he critiques his parents, like
right.
not actually kosher.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Like, he thinks he's doing everything right, but really it's like a false sense of piety.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's exactly it, right? So it's a holier than thou type of thing where you are, it's interesting because like I think there are varying levels of whether you know that you're being a jerk in this way or not, like there.
Oblivious.
Right. Like there's the Poshan Bet kid who genuinely thinks that he's helping his parents become closer to Hashem, or like he thinks that like he's mechuyev to do this by mitzvah tochacha, and then there's the person who's just like you're not from enough, you're not from enough, yeah.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of,
Is this something
myself.
you know to repeat? Okay.
Like when I was in high school, I'm from River Shade, do things differently.
Yeah.
Came home.
Yep. Yeah. So does this new example bring out a new idea, a new nuance or a new idea, or is this just a different example? And still, the question is, where does he get this from? I'm not exactly sure where he gets this from. Oh, I know where he gets this from in the pasuk. Because the choter, I think, is used as a disciplinary stick. So he is like disciplining people because he views himself as having good midos. Yeah.
Because up until now, we did associate piety with being humble.
Right.
And we put it as a one-to-one connection. This is challenging that. This is saying no, that's not enough. That your midot, that the way that your fromness does not translate to your midot in a sense, and that they could be separated.
Right. Yeah. But he is also, in your example, you were talking about the fromness. He is just talking about midos, which I think your thing still fits in.
Right.
But I want to see if we can get an idea just about the midos. I mean, the other thing also is like, I feel like in order to be able to do this, there needs to be a certain lack of empathy. And I don't mean empathy in the sense of like feeling bad for someone. I mean like what's the phrase that people always quote about, like let he who would move the world first move himself. Is that a thing that people say?
No, to first change the world, one must first change himself.
Something like that, yeah.
Or make your own bed or something.
Let he who would.
That's
Yeah, that's the one.
Is
this a Gandhi thing?
No, it's different. That was
Socrates, like the old Gandhi. Let him that would move the world first move himself. Again, I don't know if this is actually Socrates. So many quotes that are attributed to Socrates, but not really him. But that's I feel like the person who's just going around thinking that he's perfected in midos and just like either criticizing other people's midos explicitly or like implicitly. The person who actually has perfected his midos would realize how hard it is to perfect your midos and would not just go around smacking people like that, and the only thing that would allow him to do that is I feel like this guy has to be blind to his own imperfections. Yeah.
So like the subject of this would be the self-image?
Yeah, something about that. Yeah, the subject of this pasuk would be the I don't know whether to make it more about the midos self-image or the like misguided tochacha,
But there is a certain element of it's kind of like that way of the way I'm understanding this, like it's coming from an internal gava perspective. Like you're forcing your own values onto other people, because you think you're better than everyone else,
right?
In a way, and like, but it's funny. Like I could also see like another element where like maybe he generally wants to do this, and he's lacking the the emotional capabilities of conveying that message, because I'm sure he could. Let's say he generally wants to help, and like he has to help them, otherwise the other person's gonna like hurt himself.
Right.
Like there has to be a way to do that too.
Yeah. So. Okay, we should think about this more. But I do want to get to one derech nister, which is back to the meiri. He has more on the guy, but I forgot about that. All of this is teaching you about agava. Who's the chacham? Mivchar paninim. Okay, mi shehishtafel benafsho higbiha, umi shehisgai ba hishpila. Someone who makes his soul low will become raised up, and someone who makes himself haughty will become lowered. Okay, meaning like people will lower him. Then he goes on. We've talked about the darkei agava, how you should avoid it. Oh yeah, so I forgot to talk about this. At the end of last year, I discovered. So the Meiri is always talking about this Machshavah, which is found in the basic Tefilah here. This is the only printed version I know of. And he wrote this thing called Chibur HaTshuva in his youth. So I knew about the Chibur HaTshuva, but what I didn't realize is he has a whole book called, hold on, it's a huge book. I think this is the book, called Meshiv Nefesh, which is this the book? Hold on. I think this is the book. Oh, no, Shever Gaon. He has a book called Shever Gaon, which is about ego. Okay. Yeah. Right. So it's this whole book in the back here is a treatise on ego. Okay. So like that would be good to learn. I just didn't know it existed. So I think that's what he's referring to here. Okay. Derech nister. Derech nister kara hamisnaged. Okay. This is not misnaged who is against like Hasidim. Let's just see what it says here. Haphilosoph hacholik al emunasenu b'svaros sichla. Okay. Now, just to get clear, Meiri was from Provence. and the Meiri was, for lack of a better term, even though I hate the term, was Maimonidean. So he's not speaking against philosophy per se, but the Meiri always speaks against people who who feel that everything must be based on logical argumentation as opposed to relying on premises from revelation. Okay, he definitely holds you should prove as much as possible with your own intellect, and when it comes to things from revelation, you should also prove those. But he's saying he's talking about someone who basically refuses to accept anything that he cannot prove firsthand with his own mind. Okay, and therefore he'll reject nevuah, he'll reject skarva onesh, etc. And I know this from many other Meiris and Derech Nester. Okay, Evil. Oh, sorry, he's calling that the Evil. So in his mouth is the staff of Gava that he raises himself up over us through his Ion, through his own theoretical philosophy. Because he doesn't believe, he only believes that which is dictated by proof, and which he can prove through logic and through seichel. Issues haTorah upinoseha. Footnote 24 says that means yisodos. And through this, he raises himself up to break down the foundations of Torah and its cornerstones. In matters that cannot be arrived at by Eon. Okay, so in other words, this is a guy who basically says, well, if you can't prove it to me firsthand, then I'm just going to deny it, and then he denies a bunch of Torah. Stira moftis lefiha emes. Okay, so it means that they know that there's no rational contradiction. Okay, that's another key point here, is that if you hold, if you're believing something in Torah that is irrational, then you're not a chacham. In other words, you can't believe stuff that is irrational, that there's like something that contradicts logic. V'tishmurim efshar al hamisnagdim. It's possible that this applies to the misnagdim. Means that they will protect, I don't know, Torah from being torn down by the misnagdim. Oh no, sorry, that's the other way around. They'll protect themselves, I think, from being broken down by the misnagdim. Alpinos hadas v'yesod, or they'll protect the foundations of Torah. Klamar shishmeru osam, they'll protect them. V'lo tale al ubiadam shum mevucha alehem o al atman k'mosh birashu, and they will not won't come into their hand any confusion on them or on themselves. So this is a piece of practical advice, because we do live in a world where it's very easy to stumble upon arguments like this, in books or on the internet, and you have to know what is it. First of all, you have to be grounded in Torah Sinai, and you have to know what types of things can be proven and what types of things can't be, and what types of, especially, in their day, epistemology was not a threat, like that was not the dominant field. Here, epistemology, like how we know what we know and what truth is and what is the mind, and there are lots of threats that come from epistemology, and you have to you have to know what premises you're working with and what they're rooted in. I'm not going to spell those out because that's like a whole study, but like I'm just saying, like using the intended purpose as like ability reasoning off of is going to save you from a lot of types of confusion and problems, especially when you have a rational bent where you want to prove everything on your own. All right, I went over time. Sorry, I forgot to set my alarm. All right, I'm not going to summarize here because I'm over time right now. I got to get back to my class. Okay, have a good day.
Thank you.